And in an episode we're calling Healthspan versus Lifespan, we're going to look at what if you run out of time before you run out of money. Welcome to When the Fuck Did I Become Old? The fun, edgy and unapologetically honest podcast about the experiences of aging, where, as the title suggests, nothing is off the table. And I'm your host, Jo Parker.
And I'm Kev. And today we're going to take a look at the concept of healthspan versus lifespan, and whether we focus too much on the financial side of thinking about preparing for a retirement and making sure you have enough. And maybe we don't think enough about your ability to actually live well and enjoy a later life, or indeed a retirement.
Okay. So when most of us are thinking about retiring, about aging well, and that includes the concept of what retirement might look like, we picture our future self still being able to do things that matter to us, whether that's traveling, working on things we care about, spending time with people that we love, or just entertaining or being involved in the communities. We just assume that we're going to still be able to do those things, don't we?
Indeed. But as we're going to find out today, time is not infinite. And we're going to focus today on framing a discussion around the idea of there being multiple clocks or futures that you could potentially exist in.
Okay.
And they all have different timelines. And there's only one of those clocks that you can't alter.
So you're saying on the multiple clocks, we can shift some of them?
We can. We can change the others and genuinely achieve time travel. And we're going to tell you how. Okay. So let's start with the definition of some of those different timelines, some of those different clocks. So the first one is lifespan. Now, lifespan is very straightforward.
Yeah.
It's the number of years between your birth and your death.
Okay, that's straightforward.
And that's based on empirical evidence. And later on, Joe's got a bunch of stats, which she's going to run through with you. Yeah. I've got a bunch of updates on those. But that's your lifespan. Now, then the second timeline is healthspan, which is much more personal.
That's a scary one, though, isn't it?
And more subjective. It's the number of years that you're living free of any chronic health condition or some other kind of pain or disability that presents a serious limitation. And you can think of it, therefore, as the period of your life in which you can still do the things that really make your life feel like your life.
Like get up and down off a sofa and
Whatever
stuff
they
like
are.
that. Absolutely.
Now, why are we talking about this? A couple of reasons. There's been an article recently from the Harvard Medical School who wrote a report on this literally a couple of months ago. Also, it does come up in the book that we've mentioned before that we bought and read on holiday, Early Retirement Wanderlust by Richard and Jackie Pickles. So they talk a bit about some aspects of this, not all three of the dimensions. But interestingly, I think when we get through this discussion topic today, this particular concept is going to be the thing that might actually change your view on both why you would want to retire at some point in the future, but also when you would want to do that.
Okay.
So that's the big reveal.
Okay. So first off then, I've got stats on lifespan. As you say, that is the one thing that you can't control. You'd live, lifespan is
the one you can't
from
change.
0 to whenever you die. And over the past century, lifespan for all of us has increased quite dramatically. So I've got some numbers here. So in 1900 in the United States, a newborn could expect to live about 47 years. Today, that number is closer to 79, according to the Harvard Medical School. When I say today, it's a survey that took part a couple of years ago. According to the Office of National Statistics, from data gathered across 2022 to 2024, in the UK, life expectancy from the age of 65 years old in the UK was 21.2 years for females, taking them to 86, and 18.7 years for males, taking them to 83. That's an increase of 17 weeks for females and 21 weeks from males from the previous survey that was done 3 years earlier. So we are going up all the time. And
lifespan is definitely extending. Advances in medical care.
Obviously, these are averages,
etc.
But these are the numbers that we're getting. We're growing. Our lifespan is getting longer.
So those mid-80s numbers, I've heard those before. It's quite familiar. I get that. I figured I was probably going to check out in my mid-80s anyway. But over the same time period, the ONS has also gathered data on Healthspan, or healthy life expectancy, at birth in the UK, measured between 22 and 2024. And they predicted that the health span for males was only 60.7 years and 60.9 for females. So that's dramatically shorter than lifespan, which is a bit of a shock.
Scary. Yeah.
Now, again, those are only averages. There's a lot of regional diversity within the UK. And so I've just got a few examples just for shits and giggles as to some of the variations within the UK. Now, in terms of where we live, which is in Surrey, the average health span in Surrey is 65 for a male and 66 for a female. So luckily, neither of us has hit those particular benchmarks yet. So that means we're still healthy on average. Now, if we look over our shoulders to the borough that's next to us, Kingston upon Thames, they're even healthier. So health span for Kingston, 67 for both men and women. And again, if you go next door one more, Richmond upon Thames, health span in Richmond, 69 for men and 70 for women. So each area's got a slightly different demographic and slightly different health span, different environmental factors there too. But if you really want to push the boat out, Scotland's kind of the winner here within the UK.
Well, part of it, not all of it.
Not all of it, yeah, absolutely. Actually, there are some parts of Scotland score very low. There's two little blue spots in Scotland. One is in the Highlands, but the one that's really the winner here is the Orkney Islands. So the Orkney Islands have a measured health span of 73 for men and 74 for women.
Any ideas why?
I've no idea. I can only assume it's the natural environment, healthy crofting lifestyle out on the Orkneys. I've no idea. Either that or their organs are completely preserved in whiskey and therefore they'll live forever. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, so there is a spread within the UK, but nevertheless, the point is that even all of those numbers, they're all less than the lifespan, which means the proportion of your life that you're going to live with ill health is significant. And so on average, what they're sort of saying therefore is that for males, you could only spend 77% of your lifespan in good health. And females, only 73% of their lifespan in good health.
I've heard those figures before. So Kate Thompson, Hormone Geek, and nutritionist, said that, and she said it the other way around. 23 for men, it's 23% of their life they spend in ill health. And it's 27% of their life is spent in ill health. I will be looking into that in more depth actually. But so, what does health span mean, and what does it look like? So it means that on average, people are going to live for a decade or more, potentially dealing with multiple chronic conditions. So if you say that it's, I'm going to live to 86, but I'm going to stop living healthily at about 61. That's not 17 years. That's 15 years. That's 15 years. So, and if you're thinking that sounds like a wide, potentially unpleasant gap between how long people live and how they actually live well, then you're not wrong. The conditions reported here, which I've looked into, are often things like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, chronic lung disease, arthritis, cognitive decline, and of course cancer, but that can take us at any age. So let's look at it. Let's ask ourselves a different question. We know what the worst case scenario looks like. We're going to have, on average, 15 years of ill health.
Yep.
So what would a good health span look like in daily life? So according to the Harvard article, they actually cite what a good health span would actually look like. And what they said is reaching your late 70s or 80s and being able to walk at a brisk pace, carry groceries and climb stairs without stopping. Having the strength and balance to get up from the floor, catch yourself during a misstep, or travel without relying on a wheelchair. Now, these are things that we've talked about in the gym, and I'm going to bring our PT in to talk about these further. Keeping your vision, hearing, and thinking sharp enough to manage your own finances and medications and decisions. I want to explore that, keeping your vision, how you keep your vision and hearing. Because we've both got glasses. We've both got glasses.
And you've just been prescribed multifocals.
Oh yeah, I've got multifocal.
Or is it varifocals? What's the difference?
Multifocals. And I've got to wear glasses all the time now. But so vision and sight, vision and hearing and thinking sharp. Experiencing fewer long hospitalizations, fewer falls, and fewer emergencies. So these are things that can be avoided. People fall over a lot more when their bones and their muscles are weak because they do that at the ankle. I mean, now, if you are fit and healthy as you run up to your elderly, to the old age, if you trip or you stumble, you have the muscle power to right yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you haven't got the muscle power, you fall over. And those stats are scary. After 65, if you go into hospital with a break, your chances of coming out and living are not high, which is very scary. And then the last one is being able to remain connected to friends, family, community, and the activities that give your life purpose. That's key.
So those are all the characteristics of what a good health span. Achieving a good health span would be in older age. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about lifespan, health span.
Yeah.
There's actually a third dimension that we need to think about, which is actually a word that I've made up. Doesn't exist until now.
Sure.
Yeah, it's called work span. I invented it. I didn't have to Google it. It doesn't exist. So work span. So what do we really mean there? So what I was just trying to encapsulate there is, and this is a distinction in terminology, which I think really matters, because if you look at the Western model of capitalist society, which most of us live in, it's broadly structured across all countries, so that between the ages of 5 and 22, the intention is that we spend our time in education or in training, whether that's at university or elsewhere.
Yeah.
And broadly speaking, 22 to 67, it varies country to country, but broadly speaking, you're looking at a working age of about 45 years. You're looking at about 45 years where you're meant to be working full time, and you sacrifice your time and your energy in reward for money.
Yeah.
And then, broadly speaking, 67 to 85, if you just take some averages on the lifespan front, call it 18 years, in theory, you're in retirement, that you're at pension age and you're in retirement for the last 18 years of your life. Now, and of those, 5 to 10 of those could be with ill health, right? Or possibly even more.
Well, no, because the average
all
is
18 if you reach the average, but I mean,
or below average.
But that's broadly speaking the sort of the three chunks of time. It's 5 to 22, it's 22 to 67, and it's 67 to 85, broadly speaking.
Yeah, on average.
And so in the middle of that is your work span. That's the 45-year segment.
Yeah.
That's the period of time they think you're going to be working. And that period of your life is the period of the life where you have the best physical health, the highest energy levels, and the greatest cognitive skills and greatest mental sharpness. And that is the period of time when you're meant to be working. And you are rewarded, having dedicated 45 years of your life to doing that, with a very short retirement, declining health, reduced mobility, reduced energy, and cognitive decline. It's fantastic. Sounds very appealing. So to make that sort of trade even more unattractive, that working span, that's potentially changing for the worse, right? In a number of different ways. The pension age in the UK, for example, is forecast to increase to 68. Probably going to do that around 2037, 2039, according to the latest papers from the government. Now, when they do that, that's going to affect 5 million people in the UK who are currently in their 50s, who will then be told you have to retire a year later than you thought. Now, conversely, the OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility, has stated that the state pension spending is expected to climb from 5% to 9% of GDP. So that presents the government with an affordability problem. That's going to incentivize the government to do one of two things. Either make the pensions cheaper, so abandon the triple lock.
We should go back to poor pensioners.
Or defer the pension age even further to reduce the burden of the state pension on government finances, possibly up to 70.
Elderly people having to work.
So you'd have to work possibly up to 70.
Yeah.
Now, that then means the government's expecting you to work longer.
Yeah.
Right? If they do that.
Whilst in ill health, according to statistics.
Potentially whilst in ill health. Now, let's imagine you wanted to do that. The problem
or
is,
had to.
or had to, the job market
Yeah.
won't let you do that. So got some interesting stats on that. A third of people aged 50 to 65 currently today in the UK are not working. And that's around 3.6 million people. And about 1 million of those left work not by choice. They left work either through enforced redundancy,
Yeah.
ill health, or having to take up caring responsibilities for another family member. So none of them voluntarily gave up work.
That's
right?
scary.
And once somebody over 50 loses their job, they're twice as likely as a younger worker to fall into long-term unemployment statistically. So once you're out of work, you're going to stay out of work longer.
And then you hear about all the younger workers having a lot of trouble. So it's even worse. What you're saying is twice as bad for somebody who's over 50.
40% of unemployed over 50s remain out of work for over a year. And a third of over 50s have experienced age discrimination in the hiring process and have said that's put them off working altogether because the employment environment was deemed hostile.
Wow.
They didn't want them. So all of that leaves you with some major kind of trade-offs here. There's like gaps between lifespan, health span, and work span, which means you end up in a situation where the state is betting on you working till 68 or 70. That's their assumption. They want you working till 68 or 70 because they can't afford to pay you a pension. The labour market doesn't want you after 55, right?
Well, according to your stats, 50 actually.
Or 50 because they're not interested, right? And there is no state pension support to fill that gap. So there's no financial solution for that gap.
That sort of 15 to 20 year gap.
So if you're there, you have to fill that gap with your own money and your own savings.
Okay.
So that's a bit tricky. So that kind of means that we need to take a look at why do you work at all and what makes you decide to do that, and when do you decide that doesn't work for you anymore. So we work for a number of reasons. I mean, apart from self-esteem, but salary, status, money, possessions, money, all the things you can buy with it, cars, houses, holidays, stuff. And if you succeed in doing that, you end up with, you're cash rich and you're time poor. And that's kind of the trade, right? You're cash rich and you're time poor. And
well, I think those golden years are declining in terms of the cash rich, time poor, because there are a lot of people, as you say, who haven't got jobs. So they're not all, there's a lot of entrepreneurs are doing a sort of self-employment route, and they are. Yeah,
but for those in employment, I'm talking really more about those in employment, that trade is essentially you're trading freedom, time and energy for economic money. Security. Yeah. You get economic security, that's your reward. And that is the trade. So at some point you need to realize that that's the trade. Those are the things you sacrifice in return for money, and you've been making that trade your entire life. The greatest shift in thinking, I think, with regards to how you sort of place yourself on these timescales for aging, is the one that takes place when you understand the overlap of lifespan, health span, and work span for you.
Right.
And I think it's actually worth drawing them out on a bit of paper for yourself, right? Because until you see it, it doesn't really make an imprint on your brain. Yeah. Once you've seen it and you understand what your own personal health profile is, and whether you do or don't have conditions of your own that are going to be prevalent in your later years, there comes a time where you need to decide, am I going to flip that trade? If my health span is not infinite and I only have a certain number of good years, do I want to spend all of those years working?
Yeah, but what if you're a hypochondriac like me?
I'm going to skip over that there because I don't have an answer for the hypochondriac. But there's an important.
But you say so based on what you know about your current health now, your guess. A lot of it is guesswork as well, isn't it?
Of course, there's a degree of guesswork. But the point is, there's a realization there that things don't stay the same, right? And you won't be healthy forever. You won't be able to work forever. At what point do you want to spend your time somewhere else? And at what point do you want to reassess your definition of wealth? If your definition of wealth historically has just been the money and the assets and the security that your job provides, okay, you're not ready to go yet, right? But you need to get to a point where you redefine wealth, and you redefine wealth to be time, freedom, energy, health. That's the light bulb moment, right? And you can then do things to genuinely time travel, right? And to buy yourself time on those dimensions. And then you might be cash poor as a result of that, but if you're measuring your wealth differently, you'll value the time, the freedom, the flexibility, the travel, the experiences, and the relationships.
Yeah. But if we look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can really only do that if you've got your shelter and your food.
Yeah, absolutely. So it presupposes that you're already along you're along those dimensions. You've been working for a long time. You've got
you've got some savings. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going back to that Wanderlust book, the retirement book, they retired early, but they sold their house and downsized, and
they did.
So there's a whole thing about there's more than one chapter on how you can do that and what suggestions they have. So the time travel, I want to come back to the time travel, but basically I just need to remind you that we need you to follow, like, share and listen. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Audible. Share it with your friends now, because we need the followers. Thank you very much. So the time travel thing sounds exciting.
Okay, cool.
Because if there is a magic window of time when we want to live our best lives, let's assume we've got our shelter and our food sorted out. We want to extend our health span because we all want a decent life. There's no point. I think that most people are worried about getting to the end of life and even having enough money, but not having the health to enjoy that. So we want to expand our health span, shorten our work life if we can, and solve the financial bridge between that, so that we we're stopping work and actually receiving the state pension or whatever, whenever your pension allows you to get it. Because the Mr. and Mrs. Pickles, what are they called? Jackie and Richard?
Yeah.
They left before they actually were allowed to. They left their work before they were allowed to.
They did. They were in their early 50s. Yeah.
So there's an example there in the book.
So let's try and flesh out then some of the tips to achieve time travel.
Okay.
We did tease the listeners at the beginning of the episode
with
the promise of time travel. And as you say, extending your health span, shortening your work span, you can actually do that.
Okay.
More easily than you can extend your lifespan. That's harder. Yeah. But health span and work span, definitely.
So let's look at how you can buy yourself some healthier years then.
Fab.
So it's not necessarily down to genetics, because there's been studies of twins and long-lived families suggest that genetics probably explains somewhere between 10% and 30% of variation in lifespan,
right?
Depending on the population and methods. So your health span is not necessarily predetermined, because one twin may not last as long as the other twin, and they are as close to genetically as you're ever going to get. So you can genuinely slow down the process of aging inside your cells. Aging is driven by a set of biological processes, often called the hallmarks of aging. So things like damage to DNA, failing energy-producing structures, mitochondria, chronic low-grade inflammation, and changes in the microbes that live in your gut.
People do talk about gut health.
They do talk about gut health, absolutely, and it's all over the place. And what I must caveat here is that we are not experts, and there are lots of people out there proclaiming to be experts. You probably, if you're going to look at this, do need to get some expert qualified advice on this. But Harvard research does show that healthier lifestyle patterns can influence many of these hallmarks. In other words, how fast your body is aging is not completely out of your hands. So I will be exploring some of the things that we can do with some experts. And if I refer you back to Kate a few months ago when we talked about my health with the hormone geek and nutritionalist, there are things that you can do. You can reduce the chances of chronic disease occurring. You can heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and some types of cancer, and even cases of dementia. And they're strongly influenced by your lifestyle. So, you don't need to be an expert to go, if you eat McDonald's every single day for every single meal, there's a chance you're going to have some of those.
Or some other fast food chain.
Yeah, sorry, McDonald's. But in fact, But you can improve your blood sugar, you can improve your blood pressure, you can reduce your cholesterol and your weight. And there are some weight loss drugs out there as well. So, and making sure that you know what's wrong with you so that you can actually address it. So burying your head in the sand only leaves your ass sticking out, and that's not particularly very good at our age. You need to understand what's wrong with your body so you can address it. So that does leave quite, it's a huge pile of information that we're all handling. But if you look at what you can influence, which is how you eat, how you move, whether you smoke, whether you drink, how much you drink, how well you sleep, how stressed you are, and how socially connected, because that also has a whole impact on your health as well. And then whether or not you're receiving the appropriate medical care, all of which you can take some control of it and will give you a healthier lifestyle should you choose it. Again, it does. I'm not an expert. I'm just looking at what Harvard has said about this. So take a look at that. And of course, as we all know, I'm addressing my health issues as well, which is mainly around sleeping. But according to Harvard, the most important one is the mental one. So instead of seeing aging as an unstoppable slide of decline, it may be accurate and far more useful to see it as a dynamic process that you can influence every day. Because if we go, I'm guilty of that. It's going, oh my God, I don't want to be old.
Make good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. It's make good choices. But it's also, do it with information. So make good choices and do it with information and make, baby steps. If you do 1% every day, 100 days time, you've done 100%. You can't choose when you're born, but you can determine how your brain and your body function in those years that you're alive. And I'm not saying that you do that from 0 to 35, 40, but actually start thinking about it when you're 40. What can I do now to future-proof my body that my future self will thank me for it? The questions that you can ask yourself if you want to start tackling this now.
Right. Okay, cool. Great. Thank you very much. Now, that's a lot of individual small steps.
Yeah.
Each step can't guarantee a specific outcome, but absolutely, if you take them together, they definitely shift the odds. They shift the odds in your favour.
I think it's important that we get some health experts in to look at the sleep. I've looked at the sleep, but have another look at managing the stress, movement, food, etc.
And just to sort of keep an eye on the ball, the overall goal here is a simple one, right? And that is extending the period of your life where you can still do the things that you want to do. Yeah. And that's the simple goal, right?
Yeah.
So I know we're running short on time a little bit, but let's take a look at a few things that you can do to move the dial on the work span side. So we talked about the health span there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a few things you can do to move your work span around, which you might want to move to the left. If you're trying to push your health span to the right so you get more years, you might want to push your work span to the left so you spend less of those years in work. So here's a few ideas of things that are within your control. So you mentioned health. Actually, whilst you're still employed, relating to that, I would suggest you absolutely max out your private healthcare.
If you've got it.
If you've got it, right? Max out your private healthcare. Get your health assessments done, prostate checks, breast cancer screenings, blood tests, all that kind of stuff, which can detect diabetes, for example.
Yeah.
Get all of that sorted.
But even if you don't have private health, you can actually insist on that being done at the doctor's.
Some of those you can, yeah. Depends on your age. Private dental plans, if you've got those, get that work dealt with while you've got that cover. I certainly was too busy in years gone by to do that. I can remember many years when I thought, I haven't got time out of the working day to get a tube, go for an hour's appointment, get a tube back. I just can't fit it in. Now, the downside of that is I now have a shitload of work that's got to be done to my teeth, which for various reasons I haven't done. And I'm not going to have the luxury of the healthcare cover that I had with my employer, because the work that's got to be done is going to take 9 months and I won't be employed that far into the future. So I wish I had done more of that whilst I was still employed. So if you're younger, if you're thinking about trying to prep yourself and adjust your working pattern, make sure you max all that stuff out while you've got it. Next thing, if you're going to move your work span to the left, you are going to have to fund the gap between your cessation of work and the beginning of receipt of pension.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to look at how you've saved for that, both inside and outside of private pension vehicles, right? So everybody talks about lots of other things, ISA allowances, venture capital trusts, all sorts of things, other various tax efficient savings vehicles. But if you want to shorten your working life, you need to have invested and saved to make sure you can bridge the gap, right? Another thing you can do, you can negotiate the manner of your exit from work or the timing of your exit from work.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, right? Take control of your work span. So that could be anything from flexible working, right? Because actually now legally, everybody in the UK actually is entitled to ask for flexible working.
Wow.
So if you wanted, like if your thing was actually, I don't want to stop work, or I don't want to stop work early, I'd just like to do a bit less of it. I want to do a 4-day week or whatever it is. Legally, you're allowed to ask for that kind of thing. And if an employer says no, there has to be a good reason for it. But so you could do that, right? Or you could work your way out, in some sort of redundancy fashion. But I mean, the point is, there's things you can do there to taper or alter the way that you finish your working life. Career change, you mentioned earlier about some entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So some people do want to do a career change towards the end of their working life, actually. And rather than stop working, they want to do something just different.
Yeah.
So for that, you're going to need to invest in building some transferable skills earlier on. Build the transferable skills
before you do your work.
Before you do that, so that you've got a platform to take you into the next chapter in your career. And then probably lastly, and we've talked obliquely about this in other episodes, the grey divorce concept, right? So if grey divorce is on the horizon for you, if that's going to be a feature of your transition, what?
So can we call it silver?
Silver divorce, we can talk about that, yeah. But if that is on the horizon, or at least, it's a potential thing, then before you get there, make sure you get some independent valuations on assets, houses, pension funds, etc. Because if you press that button, the financial consequences that are going to be impossible to unwind.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be impossible to unwind and impossible for you to make good in the residual working life that you have. So if that's something that you're considering, you need to prep for that before you go there. So all of those things can change your working time frame. Right? Yeah. They can change when you stop work. So you can move that endpoint however you desire.
Yeah.
So let's take a breath for a moment. So that's a lot of stuff we've covered there across lifespan, health span, and work span. I think we have demonstrated how you can do a little bit of time travel, definitely on health span.
Yeah.
And on work span. So remember, the simple goal was, how can you extend your life and the period of time that in which you can still do the things you want to do? I mean, that's the real,
it's the thing that people are most dreading about getting old, isn't it? Spending all of their time unwell. But there are things that you could do to mitigate some of that.
Indeed. So I hope that's given you all something to think about. You do have the power to do time travel. If you have any tips that you want to share with us, DM us, comment on the episodes either on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you happen to be consuming your podcast from. But that's a wrap for this week. So rest assured, we will continue to share with you glimpses of our own journey in this particular direction. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you again next week for something different. Thanks.